Call Yahweh by Shem Yahushua, call Yahweh by Shem Yahushua, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh in the name of Shem Yahushua, call Yahweh by Shem Yahushua HaMashiach, Fisherman of Zion, back with another video through the spirit and the power of Yahweh by Shem Yahushua. Don't count this as a light thing to do. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh in the name of Shem Yahushua, call Yahweh by Shem Yahushua HaMashiach, peace and blessings to the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, striving and enduring in these last days, striving to continue to forsake the flesh and the cares of this world to the best of their ability. Peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High Yahweh, who we understand is our power of our God, in the name, by Hashem, in the name of His Son, His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, whom a lot of people may know as Jesus the Christ, the Anointed, our Savior, our King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords, the Alpha, Omega, first and the last, the beginning and the ending. Peace and blessings to the so-called black, Spanish, and Native Americans scattered across the four corners of the earth. Lord willing, this will be edifying to you. Don't count this as light thing to do. All praises, glory, and honor to the Most High Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. Call Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. I believe I titled this, I just found out I'm an Israelite. Should I join the military? So we're going to dive into this, Lord willing. But you got a lot of people waking up to the truth, just finding out their heritage, their nationality, which was hidden, which was a mystery, which was something that, many people may find out in these last days as the angels continue to hold back the four winds until the destruction is coming forth. Now, I want to open up this precept real quick in Daniel, because you got people finding out who they are in these last days, which is going to be more information brought out where people are going to hearken to, and they're going to find out that they are the chosen, according to the so-called black, Spanish, and Native Americans. They are the true chosen. So this is Daniel chapter 12, and I'm going to start at verse 4, and it reads, it says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." So many people are going to be running to and fro. They're going to be hearing many things. They're going to be seeing many things, as well as hearing the truth according to the Bible being broken down in these last days. As the prophets, that the Most High has sent, that they spoke the same things that we're speaking now, as far as different congregations on the corners, telling people to come back to the Most High, telling people to repent. The Most High has always had the prophets on the earth. Let me get this in Jeremiah 25, and then I want to get a precept in Genesis. The Most High has always had the prophets on the earth to warn you and to forbid you to come to Him in righteousness, truth, and sincerity. Now, this is Jeremiah chapter 25, and I'm going to start at verse 8. And it reads, it says, "Therefore thus said the Lord, Yahweh of hosts, because ye have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, said the Lord Yahweh, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land, and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all the nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and an hissing, and perpetual desolations. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, the sound the sound of the millstones, and the light of the candle." So the Most High has sent the prophets to warn us that we was going to go into captivity. And many people said we're not. Many people said we are going to prevail, according to their own words. Now, I want to get also Jeremiah 29 and verse 19. Now, this is Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 19, and it reads, it says, "Because they have not hearkened to my words, said the Lord Yahweh, which I sent unto them by my servants the prophets, rising up early and sending them, but ye would not hear, said the Lord." So prophecies are still coming to pass, are still unfolding to this day. Many things has not happened that the prophets of old spoke. Now, the Most High said also in Amos, let me get this in Amos, because before anything happens on the earth, He will warn the inhabitants of the earth. Now, this is Amos chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 6. It says, "Shall a trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord Yahweh had not done it?" So He's the controller of everything, the ruler of the face of the earth. Even when you read Job chapter 1 and Job chapter 2, it tells you that Satan was given permission to afflict Job. So Amos chapter 3 verse 7. Surely the Lord God would do nothing, but he revealed his secret unto his servants, the prophets. So the Most High is going to reveal his secrets first before he begins to do his judgments on the earth. And many people had not hearkened. So you got many things like we read in Daniel 12 and 4. Many things are being spoken. You know, many things as far as the truth and the lies are being casted down. People are still understanding that it's a division amongst us. That's why the Most High said in Hosea 4:1, there's no truth in this land. There's no knowledge here. So therefore, the Most High is going to allow certain spirits to alter. And you got certain spirits that lie. You got certain spirits that tell the truth. You got certain spirits that reveal things. And that's how the Most High gets down. Let me get this in Hosea chapter 4, verse 1. I quoted it. This is Hosea chapter 4 and verse 1, and it reads, it says, hear the word of the Lord Yahweh, ye children of Israel, for the Lord had a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, no mercy, nor knowledge of Most High God in the land. So it's nothing but lies, deception, heresies, falsehood, it's division. You know, the same thing that went on in Babylon, you know, confusion. So the Most High confounded their language, came down with that spirit to confound their language, and he exposed a lot of the things that they thought was going to be for pleasure and for comfort. And that's how the Most High is getting down now. You know, but let me get this in Romans 14 before we continue to move on. Because you got people, they're young, they're finding out of this truth. Some still in high school. So you can't just be a one trick pony, just stuck on one thing. You got to break certain things down because many people, they're on different levels. That's why you got different grocery stores, different gas stations, different convenience stores, because somebody's liking, it's always something the Most High has for that. You know, you got some rough on the edges, you got some that kind of more softer, you got some that need to be have things broken down to, just like you got different books. You go to Barnes and Noble, you go to Amazon, and there's different books. You got books for dummies, you got books for those on a higher level. That's how the Most High get down. So let me read this real quick. Romans chapter 14. So somebody's going to be persuaded. You know, somebody is going to be persuaded to join the military. And before we give, you know, an in-depth yes or no, whether you should make that move or not, you know, because there's many things we got to talk about in the scriptures. We talk about prophecy. We talk about repentance, which is a very, very important topic. You can't talk about the Most High without talking about repentance. So there's many things that we're going to talk about that is very convenient and very valuable and exhortating, however you want to use it and say it, because somebody may be persuaded that, okay, I don't have a job, I can't find a good job, I don't have enough money, or I don't have a job that I can make enough money. So God said a man that doesn't work doesn't eat. So whom can I go to give me the right answers? You know, some 11-year-old, so like somebody in the 11th grade may be stuck on the fence, finding out that they are Israelite, trying to figure out where to go, what they should do, you know. And they may be saying, well, if I go to school, I got to get in a lot of debt to pay for that degree, to pay for this degree that I want. But the military can pay for it. And you got all these different scenarios where people may try to go to the left or go to the right. So we're going to make it plain upon tables, and we're going to give the sense and break the thing down. Now, this is Romans chapter 14, and I'm going to start at verse 5, and it reads, it says, one man esteemeth one day above another. Another is esteemeth every day alike. So you got people that say, well, this day is the highest day. You know, this day is better than what last week was. You know, you got people that have different thoughts, you know, different ulterior motives. Like it says in Sirach 37, you know, you got many different watchmen on a watchtower, as a watchman is supposed to warn you about the dangers that come into the city, especially according to the Bible. So you got different, like Sirach 37 tells you, you got seven different watchmen telling you what's coming. You got somebody thinking that, okay, I know he told me this, but I'm a move this way, because their mind may tell them different things. So reading on Romans 14 And verse 5, one man esteemeth one day above another, another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. So being fully persuaded in your own mind is you understanding what is acceptable and what is good. So you have to understand that at the end of the day, because you're going to have counsels from different people. You're going to have somebody's father that might have went in the military. Somebody's father may say, well, you need to go this route because you're hard-headed, you're dumb, and ain't nothing good for you out here. But before you make that decision, especially if you fear the Most High, if you want to follow the Most High, you got to go according to the right path and the right ways to go. Now let me go to the Apocrypha real quick, because I quoted some stuff, but I wanted to read this real quick. So we're at 37, and I want to get verse 14, Ecclesiasticus and the Apocrypha. Now, if you don't got your Apocrypha, like we always recommend to get your Apocrypha so you can follow along with the 16 and 11 from first Edges all the way to second Maccabees, you know. Now, somebody put Isaiah 33 and 6, a mighty precept. It says, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. That's a mighty precept. I had that written down. I wanted to touch on that as well, you know. And that's what's going to keep a lot of people stable in these last days. The knowledge and the wisdom of the Most High, prophecy, you know, especially following his words and trying to do the best you can is forsaking the flesh and the cares of this world. Now, this is Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, which we call it, a.k.a. Sirach 37, chapter 37 and verse 14. It says, for a man's mind is somewhat wont to tell him more than 7 watchmen that sit above in a high tower. So you may be thinking, you may be sitting back looking at your bills, maybe sit back looking at, okay, your job might be shutting down, your job might have laid you off, and you got all these different things going on, and you're trying to figure out which direction should you take. Now, this is the answer to that. Verse 15, Sirach 37 and 15, and above all this, pray to the Most High that he would direct thy way in truth. So before you go to anybody for answers on how you should better your life, you gotta pray. And a lot of people they not doing that in these last days because they don't have faith, or they losing faith, or their oil is leaking. You got a lot of people, their oil may be leaking due to whom they hanging around, due to things that they're not doing. You're not being active as somebody in the word or somebody in the ministry. You kind of isolated. You kind of idle. You by yourself. David wasn't isolated. He had mighty men of the Most High around him. So that's why the scriptures say, get thee unto somebody that's keeping the commandments, to whom you know is keeping the commandments, or to whom you know is following the Most High. So above all that, you got to pray to the Most High that he would direct your way in truth. You know, let me get Romans real quick. Now this is Romans chapter 4. Romans chapter 4. Matter of fact, before I get there, I want to read Romans chapter 14 and 5 in the NLT. So Romans 14 and 5 in the NLT, because we already read it in the KJV. So NLT, New Living Translation, Romans chapter 14 verse 5, it says, in the same way, some think one day is more holy than another day, while others think every day is alike. You should each be fully convinced that whichever day you choose is acceptable. So the same thing Paul was saying, people thinking this day or that day is more acceptable. That's the same thing as far as trying to figure out which path you should go and what path you should be on, what path you should move on. Now I want to get Romans 14, so like Romans 4 real quick. So this is Romans chapter 4, and I'm going to start at verse 20. And it reads, it says, he staggered not at the promise of Most High God through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to Most High power. So Abraham was a mighty man, you know, as the Most High called him. And he had faith in the Most High. Let's read on, verse 21. Romans 4 and 21. And being fully persuaded. So he was fully persuaded, like we read in Romans 14 and 5. It says that every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. You don't want to be a double-minded man or a double-minded woman. One minute you say, okay, all right, they told me to do this. My leader in the church told me to follow this way. Yeah, I'm gonna do something different. And then the whole time you went to that person, before you went to that person, you never prayed. And then after you got the counsel from that person, you still haven't prayed. Or you might have prayed, but you might have still doubt, which the Most High said in the book of James, that when you pray, you should always already believe that it's gonna come to pass. Romans chapter 4 and verse 21. And being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform, and therefore it was imputed to him for righteousness. So yes, we got to keep the commandments. Yes, we got to follow the laws and the judgments, as well as our faith is going to help us. It's going to help take it up a notch. Because if you keep the commandments but you don't have faith, all of that is in void now. So if you pray for something and you don't believe it, your prayer is going to be void. So you want to have faith in regards to what you're asking for, as well as what you're asking the Most High to guide you towards, according to His ways and His will. You know, now of course you got a lot of people that are gonna be fooled. Now in these last days, you got a lot of people that are influencers. You know, you got some people that are in the military, and they may have a couple 100,000 followers, or couple thousands of followers, and they may tell you, you know, a cheat code to this is a cheat life hack to join the military. You know, you got all type of stuff going on these last days. You got social media influencers. You got people that want attention, and you got people that just want to make money because they have another algorithm where you can make money off the internet now. And you got a lot of people. They're, for one, what you don't want to be. You don't want to be the fool that gets fooled. And a lot of things that's going on in these last days is the blind is leading the blind, which I'm led to believe you got a lot of people in the military trying to bring in people, because for one, in these last days, it's prophesied that we're gonna go to war, regardless of how you want to put it. It's gonna be Armageddon, which in the scriptures it talks about Armageddon, which another way of saying Armageddon, the battle of Armageddon. You know, especially when you go to Joel, the 3rd chapter, which we're going to touch on that as well, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, you know, Hawashaphat, which means the Lord's judgment. So it's going to be all hell breaking loose in these last days. And you got people that they're going to drop dead. I'm trying to use my words wisely so we don't get the channel flag. So you got people that are going to drop dead. And as of, I believe it was last year, so-called 2025, you had selective service automatically registering 18-year-olds and on up for the draft. So it's no longer you filling out a paper, because I remember when I was 18, or it might have been before I turned 18, I remember going to my mother's mailbox, and it was a paper in there, it had my name on it, and I had to fill that paperwork out as far as being registered for the draft. But they don't do that no more in so-called 2026. They automatically register your 18-year-old, or if you got a child, or you know, whatever the case may be, they automatically register that, because it is gonna come a time as these service people in the military are falling short, and bodies coming up missing, and many things going on as far as emergency and chaos like that. That's gonna happen in the end times, as prophesied in the Bible. How they gonna be able to get these troops out there? They're gonna have to have a draft, and we're gonna talk about that through the spirit and the power of the Most High, Lord willing. You know, so you're gonna have, and they even got the age limit already increased. You know, and I believe in the Army, the National Guard, the Navy, I think the oldest you can be is 42 to enlist, and I think the Marine Corps is like 28 or something like that. You know, so you gonna have certain people that's gonna join due to following the ways of this world, or they might be on their last line, they might be on their last offense, or whatever the case may be, and they may join, you know. But Lord willing, you can hearken to this lesson before you make that decision, and you can go the route according to righteousness, you know. Now you got people just finding out that they're Israelites, you know. So let me get this real quick. Let me get this in St. John chapter 20. So this is St. John chapter 20. And a lot of people like to say many things about Israelites, especially the camps, those that are on the highways and byways, which we said earlier in this lesson, they have always had prophets on the face of the earth, especially when you read Genesis, the 3rd chapter. You know, who in the world was telling Adam and Eve that they was in the wrong? Do you think the Most High opened up the sky and came down from glory to warn them about the philosophies and the wickedness that they was indulging in? No, there was a prophet always around, especially when flesh and blood was on the earth, to open up the mouthpiece and speak according to thus said the Lord. So that ain't nothing different in these last days. You got the same thing going on. So this is St. John chapter 20 and verse 22, and it reads, it says, and when he had, I want to go up, St. John 20 and 20, and when he had said, and when he had so said, he shewed unto them his hands and his side, after he was um, risen from the dead out of the sepulchre. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. Then said Yahushua to them, peace be unto you, as my Father has sent me, even so send I you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said unto them, receive ye the Holy Spirit. So the Most High is breathing on a lot of people in these last days. That's how they're receiving their knowledge, their understanding, their wisdom. They didn't go to no theology school. They didn't just, you know, stumble across a couple of Bible verses. The Most High directed them to either hear a teacher on the corners or to tune into a video, and he ignited their spirit, and that's the same thing as breathing on them. And that's nothing different that happened to me and to the next elder and brother across the face of the earth that is in these last days teaching and following the Bible, repenting. You know, they're no longer drug dealers. They're no longer thieves. They're no longer doing wickedness how they used to, because the Most High breathed on them. And that's the same thing you read about in Ezekiel. Let me get this in Ezekiel chapter 37. So the Most High is breathing on his chosen people and waking them up in these last days before all hell and high water breaks loose. Now this is Ezekiel chapter 37 and verse 9, and it reads, it says, then said he unto me, prophesy unto the wind, prophesy, son of man. That wind ain't nothing different than when the Most High, when it says he breathed, you know, it's parabolic talk, but in the same sense, it's spiritual. So it says, prophesy, son of man, and say unto the wind, thus said the Lord God, come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. And who's more slain than the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans? Who's more slain than Trayvon Martin, than Sandra Bland, than Carmelo Anthony, the brother that is now doing time for the rest of his life in the penitentiary system for defending himself? Who's more slain than those that are judged for righteousness? As the Most High said, blessed are the peacemakers, as well as blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. So who's more slain than the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American? Ezekiel 37 and 10. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them. It says, and the breath came into them. So the Most High quickening that spirit. It's not because you got blood in your heart and you got lungs, and because in John the 6th chapter, 63rd verse to be exact, it said the flesh profited nothing but the words, the spirit that the Most High puts and makes alive. That's the most important thing. Because this flesh and blood, this body is corrupt. You can get aches and pains. You can get skin problems, acne. Your hair may fall out. Your eyebrows may fall off. You may have what they call it. I believe they call it leukemia. I forgot that disease. Where people eyebrows fall off and their hair fall out. So you can have all these type of infirmities, but it's according to the spirit. The Most High is tapping in with the spirit. It's not how you look. It's not how you dress. The Most High is worried about the inward man, the inward woman, the spirit that is upon that person. That's why you want to strive to be as holy as possible, so He can sup with you and dwell in your temple. Speak righteous things unto you when your mind try to get you to go astray. Because Acts chapter 14, verse 22, it says, through much tribulation we shall enter into the kingdom of the Most High. So going through hell, while we're here in captivity, you're going to need that spirit. You're going to need the Most High dwelling with you to help you maneuver through a landmass and a kingdom of darkness. So it says, Ezekiel 37:10, so I prophesied as He commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. So it said an exceeding great army. So we have a lot of people that's waking up in these last days by the thousands, day by day, finding out that they Israelites. When you got religious followers, Christian followers, Muslim followers, and all of these man-made religions trying to come up with a way to slow this thing down. Because this is it's like it's spreading like a wildfire, as it said, an exceeding great army. Because the Most High is waking them up. The dry bones is coming alive, meaning we're no longer dead. We're no longer bound to the philosophies of this world, to the beast. We're no longer bound to this system. We know the lies. We see the deception. We see all of the tactics and the tricks and the stumbling blocks that they put out there. They once said we was Afro-Americans. They once said we was black. They once said we was this. They try to keep us away from that. But we're finding out who we are in these last days. We're finding out that we're the seed line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we're no longer bound and captive. We're free. And we got to endure, and we got to stay awake. Or else we're going to fall back asleep, and we're going to be dry bones all over again. You know? Now, I want to get Romans real quick. Because, hey, this flesh is going to try to keep us down, but we got to, be a defense against the wiles of the devil. Now, this is Romans chapter 8, and I'm going to start at verse 8, and it says, so then they that are in the flesh cannot please God, but ye are not in the flesh. So when you come back to your nationality, your heritage, and start keeping the commandments and having faith in Yahweh Shah, you're no longer in the flesh. You're going to strive according to the spirit. That's why it says, seek the things that are according to the spirit and not according to carnal things. So it says, so Romans 8:8. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God, but ye are not in the flesh, but in the spirit. That's why we always say strive, to forsake the flesh and the cares of this world. It says, if so be that the spirit of most high power dwell in you, now if any man have not the spirit of Christ, Hamashiach, he is none of his. And if Christ, Hamashiach, being in you, the body is dead because of sin. Because we once was getting put to death for breaking the Mosaic law. Now we got Yahweh Shah. So when we fall short, which everybody's going to fall short, and you got to watch out for those that say they don't fall short. Everybody's going to fall short. David fell short. Peter fell short. Denied the Messiah 3 times. So you're gonna fall short. It's okay, but you got to get back up though. You got to endure to the end. It says, now if any man have not the spirit of Christ, he is none of his. And if Christ, Hamashiach, be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the spirit of him that raised up Yahweh Shah from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Hamashiach Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his spirit that dwelleth in you. So you got people that say, well, were you born in Israel? Were you physically born in that land? Where did you study at? They coming up with all this madness, trying to trip you up, but they don't understand the spiritual things. That's why a carnal man, a carnal woman can't understand the spiritual things. They always looking into where did you did, when the last time you been to Israel? Where did you study at? Were you in the synagogue? All that madness. We in captivity. We not in those times. We had that taken away from us. Read Daniel 9. Daniel said, our fathers have sinned. Verse 12. Romans 8 and 12. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if you live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God power, they are the sons of God. They are the sons of God. You're going to be on the same lines as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Enoch, Lot, Methuselah, Enos. You're going to be on the same lines. Now, let me get St. John. St. John chapter 6. Because I already quoted, but I want to get this real quick. Because you got a lot of people waking up in these last days to whom they are and the truth. And they no longer have the strongholds bound upon them. St. John 6 and 63, it says, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profited nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So you gotta understand the Most High is tapping in to the spirit. So you got people waking up left and right, all across the face of the four corners of the earth. Now you do got some in the military that's finding out who they are, but with that being known, a lot of them cannot hold on to what they know as far as what's going on in the military, which we're gonna touch on some of that. So you finding out you an Israelite, and then you think you're gonna go in a government officiated, or should I say affiliated, or more so should I say a Department of Defense, thinking you're gonna hold on to this information. Jeremiah couldn't hold on to this information. It was like a fire inside of him. He had to let it out. The Most High got his hand upon you, and that fire is on you. You gonna let it out. You go in the Department of Defense. You join the military with this knowledge, this understanding, this wisdom. They gonna kick you out. More so, you might get certain offenses, certain felonies, because sooner or later it's gonna be known as treason, especially if you teaching this word. Especially if you prophesying the downfall. Here you are in the military, and you found out that you an Israelite. You think you got you a homeboy that's supposed to be an Israelite, so-called black man. You telling him on the side, he might go back and tell Sergeant you know Sergeant Steve. Next thing you know, you getting the Article 15, whatever they call it, or you might get kicked out. And then next thing you know, you ain't gonna be able to get a civilian job because your record already jammed up. You just found out you an Israelite. This ain't ordinary regular information. This is high level, top notch, mysterious, in-depth information that a lot of people in the world can't even grasp. That's why the Most High said, many are called, but few are chosen. You ain't had no prophet that was just going around and being in the public eye. When a prophet came to a certain city, everybody was afraid because it was only one or two or a couple men that was receiving information from the Most High. They weren't doing the regular stuff as another man do. It wasn't what's the word, it wasn't a I can't think of this word. It wasn't some top notch like you got influencers these days. A prophet back then, he wasn't like a celebrity or nothing like that. A lot of people they wanted to kill prophets back then. So a prophet now is looked down upon because he's speaking the downfalls of this kingdom. Persians and the Medes, the Syrians, you know, Nebuchadnezzar, he was getting prophesied against. You know, it's many things that the Most High spoke that the prophets had to say. So you can't say you a prophet and you just try to hold your mouth. Try to, I can't say that, you know. It's gonna get me kicked out. You know, I'm gonna lose my job. I ain't gonna get my benefits. When the Most High got that word on you and it's a fire, you can't, hey, let me get this real quick. I'm gonna get this precept. I'm gonna just read it. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, and I'm gonna start at verse 8. Ecclesiastes 8 and 8. It says, there is no man that had power over the spirit to retain the spirit, neither had he power in the day of death. There is no discharge in that war, neither shall wickedness deliver those that are given to it. So you can't say, well, the Most High woke me up, he put this spirit on me, but I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna say what I want to say, and I'm gonna move how I want to move. It don't work like that. You think Judas said, well, dang, you know, I kind of betrayed the Messiah, but you know, I'm gonna kind of go in there and forgive him. He might have thought that. He might have thought, well, I could just get this money, and I know he gonna escape because he got all the powers and the mights and the wonders. I seen him do the miracles, so I'm gonna kind of act like I'm gonna betray him, but then I'm gonna give him the money back because I know he gonna escape and teleport out. And no, you if you thinking like that, you already got a reprobate mind. Let me get this in Isaiah real quick. So you got a lot of people waking up in these last days. So you can't retain the spirit. You ain't got power to do that. So this is Isaiah chapter 42, and I'm going to start at verse 5. It says, Isaiah 42 and 5. Thus said God power, the Lord Yahweh, he that created the heavens and stretched them out, he that spread forth the earth and that which cometh out of it, he that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and the spirit to them that walk therein. So once you walk therein in that spirit, the Most High got his hand on you. He controlling you now. You're going to cut your friends off. You're going to cut your family members off. You're going to be isolated because what's the purpose of being holy if you're not set apart? You can't say you holy and then now you're just doing the same things the world do. That's a hypocrite. That's backwards. The Most High said, be ye holy for I am holy. You gotta be holy. You gotta be set apart. I'm led to believe that, you know, which the Most High can do many different things. If there's a prophet in the military right now, which we know Cornelius was in the military, if there's a prophet in the military right now, ain't no way he just shaving his beard off free will. You know, not free will, but just willfully. You know, he got to be raising hell against them sergeants. You know, threatening them. You make me cut my beard, I'm gonna have to flip this table over. Because you can't retain the spirit, you know. Let me get Joel real quick. Joel chapter 2. Because you got a lot of things going on in these last days. The Most I said we were gonna be prophesying, our fathers gonna be seeing visions, sons and daughters gonna be doing this and that. Now this is Joel chapter 2 and verse 28. And it reads, it says, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. And that's what's going on. We living in the last days. As we get closer and closer to the end, it's going to be so many more people that wake up, and not only so many more people that wake up, it's going to be so many more people that fall out of the truth. Spirit just left them. They stopped teaching. They stopped wearing fringes. They stopped going on the highways and byways. They stopped doing this. They stopped doing that. You know, trying to figure out where that brother at, where that sister at. You know, where that household at. Why they ain't, you know, what's this? You know, what's going on? Most High is going to be waking up more and more people. It's not going to be what we think it's going to be. The Most High ways are different than our ways. Or you may, or a brother or sister may get ghosts. You know, ain't no telling what the Most High done. They may be somewhere in a whole different city in a concentration camp or something, and you trying to figure out, well, dang, where they went to. And then a month or two later, or a couple weeks later, Jacob trouble done kicked off, or you know, all hell done broke loose. So it says again, Joel chapter 2, verse 28, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old man shall dream dreams, your young man shall see visions. And that's what's going on. The Most High is doing a mighty work, is allowing things to be done according to his will, like it says in Isaiah 46. Let me get there real quick. Isaiah 46. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 46, and I'm gonna start at verse 9. It says, remember the former things of old, for I am God power, and there is none else. I am God power. There is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. The Most High gonna do what he said he was gonna do. He said it, and the prophet spoke it, and a lot of things came to pass as far as slavery and being led to another city by your enemies and being put on boats and being have a chains put on you, have your children taken away from you. 1400s, 1600s, and many more things are still unfolding. That the Bible speaks about and prophesies about. You know. Now I want to get this in Acts because Cornelius was in the military. But does that mean? Now, just because you're in the military, does that mean the Most High ain't gonna deal with you? No, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying any and everybody in the military ain't gonna make it. We ain't saying that. But it's a lot of things that we got to speak about, and we may not speak about all of it, and we may not be able to speak about all of it on this one video. This one lesson, but you got to keep in mind as we're gonna touch on prophecy. You got to keep in mind there's many things that's gonna take place. Armageddon. You're gonna have people in the military fighting against the Most High when he returns. So that's a fact. That's Bible prophecy, which we're gonna touch on that. But I want to read this real quick. Now this is Acts chapter 10, verse 1. It says, there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band, which a centurion is a man over 100. Once you look that up. So you had this man, which he's an Israelite. You got people saying he ain't an Israelite, because some people say he's not an Israelite because he was in a Roman army, but that's not the case. You got different people, different nations in the military. You got Moab in the military. You got Esau in the military. You got Ham in the military. You got Ethiopians in the military. And just like you got different nations in the military this day and age, it wasn't nothing new. You had the same thing back in the days of old. Let me get Ecclesiastes real quick. The classic. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9. It says, the thing that had been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. So it ain't nothing different. You had different ethnicities in the military back then, and you got different ethnicities in the military now. Let me get one more. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and I wanna start at verse 15. It says Ecclesiastes 3 and 15. It says that which had been is now, and that which is to be had already been, and Most High God required that which is past. So it ain't nothing new as far as different races being in the military. So saying Cornelius was a heathen because he was in the military, that's a lack of knowledge, and that's one of the most unscholarship ways to put it. You know, but we know for a fact that he was an Israelite. We might have to go in depth and do a lesson on that in time to come, Lord willing. As long as we still got the spirit of the Most High upon us, and He doesn't take that spirit away from us, and we can continue to break down these lessons. Now, you got some people are also saying that because he was a Gentile. And it goes into this chapter in Acts chapter 11 as well. It talks about how different things as far as the Gentiles, which we know those are the northern kingdom. Especially when you read Acts chapter 10 and Acts chapter 11, and Yahweh Bashim Shah spoke in Isaiah 42 that he was going to bring a light upon the Gentiles. He was going to wake them up. Especially when you read Romans 11, how the southern kingdom was going off, and that helped bring in the northern kingdom being grafted back in and things like that. But we're gonna have to do a different lesson for that in the times to come. But you're gonna have different people fall. Like I said, I want to use my words wisely. You're gonna have different people fall on the battlefield, and that's gonna bring in the draft. Now knowing Bible prophecy, would it be wise for you to join the military? Would it be wise for you to do that? Now, the Most High can do anything. He can protect anybody, and he can be a shield and a covering. Let me get this real quick, because I don't want to make it seem like the Most High is not going to protect you, because he is, mighty and all powerful. Now, this is Psalms 91. And I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I would say of the Lord Yahweh, He is my refuge and my fortress, my power. In Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and thy buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid by the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day." So David was protected on the battlefield. If you want to get technical, David was on the battlefield. David had a sword. He was a man amongst boys. But again, I'm not saying it's not me saying take that analogy and say, okay, all right, I'm gonna do my thing. No, that's not what I'm saying. The Most High gonna have different people doing different things, and you gonna have to stand in that lot at the end of the day. So whatever the Most High got planned, it's gonna be already set in stone. Now I want to get Jeremiah 51 real quick, because this is Bible prophecy. You got the Battle of Armageddon. You got the Valley of Jehoshaphat, how it should pop. You got things gonna happen. So a lot of people that go over there and fight in the Middle East, and it's gonna be a lot going on. A lot of people that go over there, it's a lot of them that ain't gonna make it. Because the Most High prophesied that this place and many other parts of the East is gonna be a wasteland. It ain't gonna be nothing different than Sodom and Gomorrah. It ain't gonna be nothing different than the 10 plagues in Egypt. Because a lot of that is gonna be to free the Israelites, the chosen, and redeem them from the hand of the oppressor. Now I want to get this to Jeremiah 51 real quick, because you will have a draft. Now this is Jeremiah 51, and I'm gonna start at verse 29, and it reads, "And the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord Yahweh shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without inhabitant." So even in a so-called America, this is gonna be a wasteland. Ain't no gonna be over here. You ain't gonna be able to live over here. It's gonna be like that in other parts of the land as well. Verse 30: "The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holes. Their might have failed. They became as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken." So you got these 18-year-olds, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. You got these feeble-needed, weak. Some of them don't know how to change the tires. Some of them don't know how to change the oil. Some of them don't know how to do nothing but dance, do TikToks, play video games, and you're gonna have them getting drafted, going into war. It's gonna be crazy out there. It's gonna be crazy out there. It ain't gonna be able to stand that. They ain't gonna be able to stand against Russia and China, and a lot of the stuff that's gonna take place. They ain't gonna be able to stand that. How you gonna you know have, which a lot of people they say America's military is pretty much one of the top militaries in the world, but a lot of people say that due to the fact that they got money, so-called got money, they got a lot of resources, but it ain't gonna be able to stand against what the Most High has prophesied is gonna take place. And you got a lot of women that's gonna fight too. You got a lot of women that's over there as well, which that's against the law anyways. So why would you want to join the military when they already not following the ways of the Most High? You got women on the battlefield about to get their head blown off, their legs blown off. They don't care, you know. In the law it says the fearful should not in Deuteronomy, the fearful should not be out there on the battlefield. And you're gonna have so many people that's gonna be afraid. They're gonna put fear on the other person. Next thing you know, you ain't gonna be able to do nothing out there. You're gonna freeze up. You're gonna jam up the whole unit. So let me get Revelation real quick. So when it's time to do a draft, you see a lot of troops getting deployed over here, get deployed over there. You already know it's war going on, which it ain't even reached the level that it's going to be very crazy. Right now, it's a lot of stuff that you may read, and I just seen something not too long before I started this lesson. Just seen, Donald Trump was saying, "Hey, if this nation, if this, I believe it was, it might have been Iran. They said if they don't agree to this, hey, we going crazy. We gonna shut it down, you know." So let me read this right quick. So we dropping a bomb. So this is Revelation chapter 11 and verse 14. It says, "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." So in the Bible, it's prophesied that you're going to have the battle of Armageddon. You're going to have these things take place. WW3. If you can get down with it, WW3. You already know what it is. Let me get Revelation 9 real quick. Revelation chapter 9, and let me see where I want to start at. I don't want to have to go too much in depth, but I'm going to stay on track. Revelation 9. I'm going to start at verse 12. It says, "One woe is past, and behold, there cometh two woes more hereafter." So, the first WW3 already took place. The second WW3 already took place. And here we are fastly approaching on WW3. The Battle of Armageddon. Which that's going to be a top prophecy that's going to take place when the Lord returns. Let me get Isaiah real quick. Isaiah chapter 3. This is Isaiah chapter 3. And so knowing this, that's like knowing that you about to get in a major car accident. Let's just say you got a certain car that got a recall on it. At any given moment, all these different things supposed to fail on this car, and you say, "Man, it is what it is. I'm gonna go get that car and I'm gonna drive it." You knowing that this car is not supposed to be on the highway, but you gonna get in it and you gonna take it down the road full speed. You might even do 100, but it's got all these recalls on it. And the recall is gonna tell you what's gonna happen, but you don't know when it's gonna happen. That ain't no different than you hearing and you seeing and you reading all these prophecies, and then you want to take the initiative to say, well, I ain't got nothing else to do, so I need to join the military. You put yourself in a position to tempt the Most High. But everybody in the truth, they not really in the truth. All Israel is not Israel. We're gonna put it straight like that. You got a lot of people, they just want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to try to make a name for themselves, and they running out of different things to do. They might have been a Muslim, they might have been an atheist, they might have did this, they might have been in a Christian church. So a lot of people, they might put the fringes on for a season, and the next thing you know, lights out. Lights out. They done with that. So many people might hear this, they might say, well, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get them benefits. I'm gonna join the military, which is a not a smart thing to do, especially knowing Bible prophecy. So this is Isaiah chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at verse 24. Isaiah 3:24, it says, and it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle a rent, and instead of well set hair baldness, and instead of a stomacher a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. Because our daughters of Zion, they was gonna go through a lot of stuff, and a lot of this, you know, took place, especially in 70 AD, but on another level, it's all going to come back into fruition because we already read the Most High required that which is past. So the daughters of Zion is going to be in a position to be afflicted in these last days too, as well as the men, the women, and the children. Verse 25, Isaiah 3:25, thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty men, and thy mighty in the war. So the Most High already prophesied that it was going to be a war. Already prophesied that. The writing is already written. It's on the wall. Somebody just got to interpret it and break it down for you, give you the sense. But yet you're going to have somebody ignorant and somebody with a deceived heart saying that ain't so. Just like Jeremiah was telling them Nebuchadnezzar going to send them into captivity, and they say that ain't so. You a false prophet. All right, that's what you think. You're going to see the works and the wonders of the Most High. And it's going to come to pass. Now, let me get this in Second Edges real quick. Before we go into the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Which this is also talking about it as well. This is one of the precepts going into it. This is Second Edges chapter 16, and I'm going to start at verse 34. And it reads, it says, I'm going to start at verse 32. Second Edges 16 and 32. It says, and the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and her paths shall grow full of thorns. Because no man shall travel therethrough. The virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. And this is how Isaiah 4:1 is going to be brought into fruition. Because you're going to have a lot of men that's going to get put to death on the battlefield. And those women are going to be widows. As it says in Isaiah, 7 women shall take hold of one man, especially when it's well known in the spirit and it's well known according to the knowledge and wisdom of the Most High that the Israelite man is going to be a safe haven, a cover. So you got a lot of women that going to want to be called by that man by his name, especially if he's of the elect. Because women going to have to get, that women going to be in the kingdom too. And that's a way that the Most High is going to allow those first fruits to be brought forth, when the elect gets beamed up. So reading on, 2 Ezra 16 and 34. And in the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. So if you're not in the battlefield, on the battlefield, then a lot of people gonna die for famine. And I seen this video. This one woman in the military. She said, yeah, I think I was seeing this last year or something like that. This woman, she was in the military. She said a lot of people are afraid to join the military because they're afraid they might get deployed and go to war. But she said even if you're not in the military, you're gonna die anyways. Which, hey, she wasn't lying. You know, it's a lot of people that are gonna get put to death, either by pestilence, by famine, or by nuclear destruction. But the elect is gonna be protected, even though the Most High says some standing here shall not taste of the death until they see the kingdom of the Most High. So you're gonna have many things take place, but through it all, you know, you gotta pray to the Most High that He direct your path in righteousness. Now, on another fold, you got a lot of people. The only reason why they want to join the military is for the benefits. We're gonna cut straight to the chase. They so call it stability, education, health care, and security. You know, now it don't matter how you put it. If you can't manage your money, that don't give you the right to say, well, I want to go somewhere where I can, be stable or I can get these benefits. It don't matter if you make $1 million a year. If you don't know how to manage your money, if you don't put the fear of the Most High in everything you do, you pretty much gonna move like the wind. One minute you buying this, the next minute you buying that. One minute you thought you wanted this, so you took that back, and then you lost the value, the appreciation going down. You bought $100,000 car, and then you got in a wreck, and you bought $1 million house, and it got flooded or it got burnt down. If you don't know how to manage your money, you ain't look. It don't matter where you work at or what you do, you know, because the scriptures say money is a defense for sure, but joining the military for money ain't. Look, it's so many people that work in factories that make more money than people in the military, and you got people that work in these factories that used to be in the military. Or you even got people that's homeless on the side of the street, holding up signs, asking for money. They used to be in the military, especially in Fayetteville. If you know anything about Fayetteville, you got people out there in old military uniforms begging for money. So joining the military for money, that's the last thing you should be doing. Because you ain't gonna escape these curses, first and foremost. You're not gonna escape these curses. You always gonna have to sweat from your brow to make a living. That's the way the Most High set it up. Until we enter into the new covenant and get into the kingdom, working is always gonna be what you're supposed to do. You can't sit on the couch and live off somebody. You got to get up and make it happen for yourself, especially if you got children, especially if you a man and you got a wife. That's just the way the Most High got it. But let me get this real quick. Ecclesiastes 7, and I'll start at verse 12. It says, "For wisdom is a defense, and wisdom is going to help you too make the right decisions, making the right decisions. How you need to run your household, how you need to structure your marriage, how you need to structure your children, teaching your children this, allowing your children to follow this. Just imagine you joining the military, and you thinking you gonna make some type of move for you, or you gonna think you gonna do something. Next thing you know, you just got married, or you already married when you go in, or you might have just had a child, or you having children, or you already got children going in. Next thing you know, they tell you got to get deployed. You going across the state, or you going across the world for 6 months or a year or two or whatever. Man, a lot of these dudes in the military, they come back, they done found out their woman done cheated on them. And you think you gonna be straight? You think you gonna have a God fearing mind? You done seen a lot of stuff. You got all these Edomites spitting in your face and yelling in your face. You got to go through all these certifications, and you got to go through all these physical tests. Think you gonna do that? And somebody done found out that your woman done did this and did that with the man across the street. You might mess around and kill somebody and then you get locked up. You know. Now I ain't never been in the military, but I have, you know, worked a job and, you know, was home, like it was away from home, you know, 30 minutes down the road, 30 minutes, still got cheated on. So what you think gonna happen? You go across the world. You go across the world. You in Iraq. You can't just up and leave. Them folk gotta give you yes or no. You know. You can't move how you want to move in the military. You got the young dudes thinking they finna go in the military, get a scat pack and a Hellcat, and somebody done told you 2 months ago that you were Israelite. Man, you got to be a fool. Them Hellcats and scat packs gonna get burnt up, man. Most High gonna consume everything. Let me read this real quick before I read Ecclesiastes. You got a lot of people. They dumb, man. You know, I hate to say it like that, but why you gotta be so carnal? There's many things you can do. You can go to trade school, start your own business. You can become a plumber, start your plumbing business. You can be an electrician. You might gotta pay a little money out of pocket for that degree or that certificate, but ain't nothing free. Ain't no handouts out here. Your enemy got his foot on your neck until your house shot come back, and you looking for a handout. You done lost your mind. So this is 1 Peter chapter 3, and I want to start at verse. I want 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at verse 9. It says, "The Lord is not slack concerning His promise, and the Most High has promised the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that we gonna reap the benefits of this earth. We ain't gonna have to beg for it. We gonna take it, man. The Most High said we gonna take the kingdom. Ain't no, hey, look, I done put my 20 years in. Can you give me that? No, we gonna take the kingdom, man. We gonna take the kingdom. Lord willing, I'm in that number. And many more of the so-called Black, Spanish, and Native Americans that might be tuned into this video. Ain't no, hey, look, can I get my benefits? You know, let me get my VA loan. You know, look, I got hurt. I got shot. I got wounded. I need 100%. No, we gonna take the kingdom. Ain't no put no 20 years in. Ain't no a purple heart or whatever they call that. We need all that. Give me that. All that you stole from Solomon. All that you took. We getting all that back plus some. You know. That's why the Most High said in Romans 8:18, the servants of this present time are not ready to be compared to the glory that's gonna be revealed in us, man. You ain't getting no chariot with no Air Force uniform on, with no Army uniform on, with no Marine uniform on. You ain't doing that. You know, here you are trying to go across the world and fight for this man, and you don't even know what you fighting for. They ain't nothing but lies. They stealing resources and lying to you. You getting sworn in thinking you fit to defend your country. This place has raped, robbed, and murdered your forefathers, annihilated your ancestors, and you trying to go and join and fight for them. You crazy. Your mind is bad. Need to go on a fast. Need to pray. So this is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 10. It's like I'm going to finish verse 9. 2 Peter 3 and 9. The Lord is not slack concerning His promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works there are therein shall be burned up. So the Most High going to destroy this place. It don't matter if you active duty. It don't matter if you reserve. It don't matter if you National Guard. It don't matter where you at and what you doing. The Most High is going to get up with this place. And who you think He's going to be getting up with it first? Of course, the the so-called Black, Spanish, and Native Americans gonna get judged first. But who gonna be trying to fight against the Most High? The ones in the military, the aircraft, the Air Force, all the Department of Defense. Most High gonna get up with them, gonna put them all down, gonna lay them down. The angels too, cause he come up with that host, that heavenly host. Now let's go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 7. Because a lot of people want to join the military for money, or for the health care, or because they can get some type of free education. They got the education paid for. Now, don't get me wrong. There ain't nothing wrong with trying to expand yourself, especially if you got a household to take care of. But you need to do it in the righteous sense that you're not limiting yourself or shorting yourself or setting yourself short. Here you are. You wanna put the Most High first, because that's the way you gotta put it. It don't matter what you do, because people say they got so-called dreams, but if you putting that before the Most High, you already fail. It's already a void. It's already in vain. So anything you put before the Most High is a no-go. It's not happening, because it's idolatry. It's the ways of your own doings. The Most High said, lean not onto your own understanding. Proverbs 3 and 5. So why would you want to try to make it big in this society, and when it's time to get out of here, you're gonna be looking back at all you had to sacrifice. You got to sacrifice time away from your family, but you're not willing to do that for the ministry. You're not willing to put the ministry first. Man, I gotta go in another city. My wife just had a baby. I ain't gonna be able to do nothing. The law says if a man go to war, he was just married, he gotta go back home. The law says that I can't go to war if I just was married. And then you applying all the law, statutes, commandments to the ministry, but when it comes to trying to get a job, you ain't trying to apply none of that. You ain't trying to apply none of that. Where them law, statutes, commandments at when it's time to look for a job? When it's time to apply for these jobs? But you set yourself short when it comes to teaching on the highways and byways. You set yourself short when it comes to doing lessons and videos and exhorting your people. But when it's time to pay that light bill, you want to say, and you stressing, you straddling the fence, you sweating, you're cutting corners, you're leaking oil, you're losing faith. So Ecclesiastes 7 and 12, it says, for wisdom is the defense, and money is the defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. So above having money is, that wisdom. It's going to help you. It's going to help you. It's going to keep you in a right space to have you avoid stumbling to the left, falling short, falling and getting feeble needed. And you might got your woman saying all of this. If you join the military, I get benefits, and your daughter get benefits, and your son get benefits, and if something happened to you, we're gonna be taken care of. Look, hey, you gotta put your trust in the Most High. Something happened to you, hey, he gonna protect them regardless. Especially if y'all doing what he say. Let me get Ecclesiastes 10. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 19. It says, a feast is made for laughter, and wine make it merry, but money answered all things. Of course, the only way you're going to be able to have a feast is if you can afford to get that money. Or, so like, if you can afford to buy whatever you need for a feast. But that don't mean we're gonna be in love with money. Let me get this in 1 Timothy. That don't mean I'm gonna look for a job and I'm gonna base everything based on that job. Yeah, I get these benefits and I make this much money. I can do what I gotta do. No. You falling in love with that thing now. This is 1 Timothy chapter 6. And I'm going to start at verse 10. It says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. So you falling in love with money, that's where you're going to lose it. It says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So you got a lot of people, they just getting degrees and getting stuff because they know they can make this much money. But you ain't doing it for the love of it. For the love of whether you're going to school to be a doctor, you ain't doing it because you love helping people. You're doing it because that's the top job. It's the top occupation. That's the top career. That's why you got a lot of people falling out the truth. Because they so-called ain't getting no money. You know? Or you got some, they making money off people, and then the Most High start exposing them for filthy lucre's sake. The best job you can have is doing something that you love to do. Don't do it for money. Because once you do it for money, it's always going to be something come up in the next century or the next year that's going to pop up out of nowhere, making more money. And then you say, dang, I'm in the wrong field. I got to switch up my motive and I got to go over there. So if you chase the money, that's the worst thing to do. You know, it's the worst thing to do. And then you got people wanting to do stuff for the health benefits. Now, let me get this real quick in Sirach. Let's go to the Apocrypha. So get the job for the benefits, that ain't the best thing to do either. Because the Most High, he the one controlling your health. He the one keeping you in good health. You know, he the one keeping you in good health. You know how many times you went on that highway and the Most High could have had them cars run off the road and smack you and just wipe your whole car out? Especially if you had somebody in the back seat, or if you especially if you had a car seat back there with a baby in it, why you ain't think about the health care then? But all of a sudden now, the so-called what they call it, the cost of living is high, everything high, rent high, food high, clothes high, groceries high. So now I gotta find a job to be able to keep up with all this. What happened to what David said? He never seen his seed begging bread. But you want to get a job based on the economy. The economy gonna collapse regardless. When your house shot come back, ain't gonna be no, man, you know, the stock market crash and I lost my Bitcoins and my 401k money and my RAs, my Roth, my real estate, my equity, and I lost my house. Ain't none of that flying with the Most High when he come back. So you gotta be ready to lose everything. You gotta be ready to give it all up. Gotta be ready to give it all up. That's why the Most High say be content with what you have. Because once you start looking at, man, we do need a bigger house, you know. Where your faith at, you know? Where your hope at? Seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things will be added. You pay that house off, you still owe. You still gotta pay them taxes. But once you get to the kingdom, Lord willing, you ain't gonna have to worry about that. You always gotta be looking forward to the kingdom. Always gotta be looking forward to that. Or else this world will suck the life out of you. Now this is Sirach 38 and 15. And it reads, it says, He that sinned before his maker, let him fall into the hand of the physician. So you might mess around and get around some wicked soldiers. They might have you doing some stuff you never thought you would be doing. Or you might be stressed out at the highest peak. You might have to do something you never thought you would do. And then the Most High said that he that is in sin, let him fall into the hands of the physician. And the whole time you saying you joined for the benefits. Because all the other jobs you had, you couldn't get no benefits. That's the worst thing to do. Let me get James real quick. What happened to prayer? What happened to asking people to pray for you? Now this is James chapter 5 and verse 14. Man, I done been in so many situations where my children done got sick. You know, I prayed before I took them to the physician, and I already trusted in the Most High. And test results came back, still didn't knock my faith. Still, all praise to the Most High that I continue to have faith. Test result came back, still had faith. Years later, didn't let none of that waver. Till we got that good report called on Yahweh by Shema Shah. You know, and the Most High gonna put you in position to test you. This ain't just only for people that thinking about joining the military. The Most High might put you in a situation to ultimately test you, whether it be a disease, whether it be you on your last line, you on your last leg, you don't know where you turn. Hey, it could be you could have been a dope dealer. The Most High testing you, and Satan trying to tell you go back to the streets. There ain't no other jobs. You got a felony, can't get no job. So what you gonna do next? And you ain't prayed and you ain't fast. You can't let Satan get you in that corner and just keep throwing them jabs at you. Next thing you know, I ain't got nothing else to do. Gotta go back to the old way. Can't let Satan throw you off course. Now let's get James chapter 5 and 14. It says, I'm gonna start at verse 13. James 5 and 13. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Verse 14. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. When the last time you asked somebody to pray for you? You ain't got no money, but I gotta take this loan out. Why you ask somebody to pray for you? Hey brother, I'm thinking about taking this loan out, brother. Can you help me out, brother? Can you throw some prayers up for me? You got a lot of people that just proud in these last days, man. Man, my light bill due, man. I lost my job last week. You know, I took out a loan to pay that loan, brother. I'm down bad, brother. Can you help me out, brother? Or if you can't help me out, can you pray for me? You got to get that pride away from you too. You got a lot of pride for people in these last days. Man, I can't let that brother know I ain't got no money. That brother always called me for the precepts. That brother always called me for help. I can't let him know I need help. He gonna look down upon me. That's where you going off in. You gotta get that demon of pride off of you. And then the Most High can open up a door for you. Once you let that pride go, once you let all that I don't want to be seen or heard as or this type of brother, this type of sister, Most High might open that door up for you. Might make something happen for you. You got that pride around you, filled with pride, and then destruction gonna come. You know. Now let me get Proverbs chapter 20, because a lot of people, the reason why they want to get a certain job or to join the military, because they want to get their children straight. If something happened to me, I know little Junior gonna be all right. But hold on now. Most High told David he was gonna be set up. Solomon came after him and we're going off. And then the Most High said, for the sake of your father, I'm not going to take the whole kingdom away from you. So what the father doing, hey, it can help the children. Unless you got a wicked father. You know. You thinking joining the military ain't gonna set your children up? Man, you already done lost your mind. Cause you putting the Most High in the box. You keeping them commandments. You might have helped somebody out. You might have gave some alms. You doing what you supposed to be doing. Stop holding the Most High on a short stick. He gonna make sure your children's straight. Look at what he did for David. Solomon was wicked, man. He was building idols and altars for these women. But the Most High still made sure he didn't take everything from Solomon. Because of David. You know? Now, let me get this real quick. Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 7, it says, The just man walking in his integrity, his children are blessed after him. So your children gonna be blessed as long as you on the path that you supposed to be on and doing what you supposed to be doing. You know, that should be the mindset right there. That should be the mindset. Let me get Toby real quick. Now you got people, they they get overseas and they start dealing with these heathen women, and you thinking your children gonna be blessed. Yeah, I got a little Moab son, I got a little Moab daughter, I got me a little Ammonite. Man, that child's supposed to be speaking Hebrew. Why is that child speaking Chinese? Walking around with a Seacon Dawn outfit on, man. You think that Moab woman gonna put some fringes on that child? Now this is Tobit chapter 4 and verse 12. Tobit chapter 4 verse 12. It says, beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to a wife which is not of thy father's tribe, for we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. So even though if you were Israelite, your child gonna be an Israelite, but at the same time, you gonna cause strife in that household, man. And then that woman might try to take that child away from you. So you gotta understand that you want to keep things in a rightful sense, in a rightful space, you know, because you want your children to be blessed. You want your children to follow the paths of righteousness and the paths of our forefathers, you know. Now I ain't got much more time, but through the Spirit, let me get this in Romans real quick. Just like before I get that, let me get Joel chapter 3. So this is Joel chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at verse 1. It says, so you do have the battle of Armageddon that's gonna take place. And with that being said, it's Bible prophecy. It's already written, and it's gonna come to pass whether you believe it or not. Because the Most High already spoke of it. And it's coming to pass as we speak now. Now we do have, let me get this real quick before I get Joel chapter 3. Let me get this in Matthew. Now you do have rumors of wars and many things taking place right now, and sorrows being looked upon. Now this is Matthew chapter 24, and I'm gonna start at verse 6. Matthew 24:6. It says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So all these things that was prophesied to happen is gonna come to pass, but the end is not yet. Now, many people think they got time. They think they got 5 more years, 10 more years, 12 more years, 20 more years to make something happen. You know, you thinking you got time, but time is not on our side. It takes time to build up faith. It takes time to get your house in order. It takes time to get your spirit right. You think you can do it overnight? It don't work like that. That's why the Most High said in Revelation. Let me get this in Revelation real quick. Cause if you in the truth, hey, remain in the truth. If you on fire, stay on fire. You know, if you teach and keep teaching, why would you want to join the military and you ain't gonna be able to teach? You think you gonna go and join the department? You think you gonna go and join the Department of Defense and keep shaking their hand, keep prophesying the downfall of this kingdom? They gonna lock you up, and if you get out, you ain't gonna be able to get a job because it's gonna be on your record. So this is Revelation chapter 22, In verse 11, it says, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. So if you set apart now, you know, you got your little 9 to 5, you go in there, you clock in, you know, you do your little thing, and then after that, you out of there. You ain't gotta worry about somebody all in your privacy. When you in the military, you ain't got no privacy, man. You get in a car wreck, they gotta know about it. You got a DWI, they gonna know about it. You and your old lady got into it, they gonna know about it. Somebody called the cops on y'all, they gonna know about it. You got a little sprained ankle when you were playing basketball, they gonna know about it. You got stabbed, they gonna know about it. They look, there ain't no privacy when it comes to the Department of Defense or whatever occupation you're trying to get on as far as that level. Your YouTube videos, they gonna see it. You in the highways and byways, they know about it. You know. So this is we just read rumors of wars. Let's go to Joel chapter 3. So you got the battle of Armageddon coming up soon. Lord willing, we be able to see that. You know, like the prophet said, you know, they would love to see the days that we are in, the times that we're in. You know, so Joel chapter 3, verse 1. It says, for behold, in those days, in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. So the Most High is going to blow this pace up, you know. And the only way, you know, the way for, you know, the Edomites to take their hand off of us, the Most High got to bring those nations and wipe them out. You know, he got to wipe them out, and the new kingdom is gonna come. And so, a lot of people they really don't understand that this right here is gonna be the ultimate judgment. You know, which is Yahweh Shaphat. You know, the Lord's judgment, as it says, bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. You know, the Most High is gonna redeem and take the oppressor hands off of us. You know. Now let me get First Maccabees real quick. It says all nations. Now I'm gonna get some First Maccabees. This is First Maccabees chapter 2, and I want to start at verse 10. First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 10. It says, "What nation had not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? So the Ammonites, which are the Japanese, the Moabites, which are Chinese, the Hamites, which are the you know, another dark race that had a hand upon us, Tyre and Zidon as well, you know, had us in chains and yokes and shackles. So the Most High is going to bring these nations in the valley of Jehoshaphat, and that's how he's going to redeem us. You know, it's going to be a destruction in the Middle East, in Israel, you know. Let me get Joel chapter 3, verse 9. This is Joel chapter 3 and verse 9, and it reads, it says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. And another way of understanding the Gentiles, you can read Genesis chapter 10 as well. Genesis chapter 10. Let me get this real quick. Genesis chapter 10. And I'm going to start at verse 5. It says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their land, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. And it goes on down and talks about Ham's descendants. You know, so going back to Joel chapter 3 and verse 9, it says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. So the Most High is a man of war. You know, either you on his side or you against him. Where you want to be at? How you want to play the cards? You want to be on his side because, hey, last time I checked, 144,000 from 12, so like 12,000 from each tribe. is going to make that cut as the 144,000 elect men that's going to be fighting with the Most High. So where you want to be at? You either want to get ranked in the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Army, National Guard, the Army, or you want to get ranked in the Most High's Army. You want to be in the Most High's Army, or you want to be in Esau's Army? Where you want to be at? How you want to play your cards? How you want to play this thing out? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I want to suffer now so I can reign later. Hey, you can keep them benefits, man. You can keep that uniform, man. And that's what the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans need to be saying. And especially those that's in, they need to get out. Because it's going to be, it's fit to be crazy. All hell fit to break loose, man. So let me read this again. Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So you got people that was into agriculture. Plowshares and pruning hooks. Hey, you got agricultural instruments. And now they into making nuclear missiles. Countries that was deep into agriculture, they going full-fledged, get prepared for Armageddon. Let me get Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 9. I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, for thou hast broken the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So, the Most High put it on Esau's spirit to make these instruments, to make these missiles. The Most High put it on his spirit. And it's a movie. I forgot the name of the movie. It's Edomite. He was going through all of these different tests and going through all these different things to make to get these missiles made. I forgot the name of that movie. It's some ugly Edomite that played this movie. I forgot the name of it. But it was a man. It was a man that was the he first started making these atomic bombs. Let me get this in Isaiah real quick. Isaiah 54. It's the book of Isaiah chapter 54. I believe I'm on verse 16. Isaiah 54 verse 16, and it reads, it says, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the wasted to destroy. So the Most High created Esau to do these things. That's why Esau's wisdom is the way it is. Algebra, chemistry, all of these different things, science, and that's why a lot of people, they get so infatuated and get so amazed when they get over here. Most High created him to be like that. That's why when you go to his schools, you got to learn about certain stuff and you got to pass certain tests. And Most High said his wisdom is the foolishness of this world. He has made this world's foolishness the way it is. So, the Most High set Esau up to be like that. Let me get Proverbs real quick before we wind down. This is Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 1. It says, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh. So the Most High is directing everything to be the way it is. He putting the domino pieces in effect. So one is going to knock it down, and the other prophecy is going to come to pass, and then the next prophecy is going to take place. Next thing you know, you're going to look up, and the chariots going to be up there. Proverbs 21 and 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. So the Most High is moving the strings, pulling the cars, pulling the strings to be the way it is, you know. And when you join the military, let me read this real quick. It says, when you join the United States military, you must recite an official pledge known as the Oath of Enlistment. It says the oath outlining and binding service members to defend the U.S. Constitution, bear true faith and allegiance to it, and obey the orders of the president and appointed officers according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It says key aspects. It says, while so help me God can be omitted for an affirmation, the oath centers on loyalty to the Constitution. It says legal obligation. It establishes a legal duty to follow the chain of command. So you got to move how they tell you to move. You got to cut your hair a certain way. You got to shave your beard off. You got to look a certain way. People say you can get a certain religious accommodation, but man, look, your the guy that's over you, he might be a demon. He might work his way against you. Man, we done heard so many stories, so many things that went on, and I got family members that's in the military, and hey, it ain't always what you think it is. So what do I say? No, you shouldn't join the military, man. Let me get Romans real quick before we close out. You better, you better pray and get you another job if you have to, or just wait till the Most High open up something for you. If you gotta go back to school, figure something out. You know, go part time. Try to get a certificate here and there. Go to trade school, but you should not be fighting the enemy's wars, man, and his problems. You should be waiting on Yahweh by Shemel Rashad to get you out of here, not fighting against him. Now, this is Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, and it reads, it says, and be not conformed, meaning don't follow, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, if you want to be a nigga man, nigga woman, if you want to go back in the world, if you want to be lukewarm, which a lot of Israelites in this truth are, then, hey, that might be the place for you. The Most High might already draft you behind there anyways, because you want to be a nigga man, nigga woman. You want to be lukewarm. You want to break the commandments. You want to blaspheme the Holy Spirit. You want to talk about people in this truth. You want to talk about camps. The Most High might already got your card pulled. You might be one of the first ones to get pulled to go to the war and the draft. It says Romans 12 and 2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of the Most High power. Let me get let me get 1 Peter before we wind down. 1 Peter chapter 1. It's so much, it's so many things you can do. You can start your business, It's so many things you can do. Stop limiting the Most High and stop putting yourself in a position to where you ain't got faith. But through it all, you got a lot of people that's lazy too, sitting around and, 12 years I went by. I should have did this. I should have did that. This is 1 Peter chapter 1, and I'm gonna start at verse 14, and it reads. It says, I'm gonna start at verse 13. 1 Peter 1 and 13. Wherefore gird up the loins of your mind. Be sober and hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. So you gotta be sober, man. You gotta be, attentive, alert, But if you're not sober, you kind of drunk. You out there, you just, oh man. You don't want Babylon to get you drunk, man. Babylon got a lot of people drunk, following the ways of Babylon the Great, America. Nah, like I said, ain't no going back to school if you want to do that. try to better yourself or to try to get you a trade or something, hey, look, you gotta do what you gotta do. But use the world, but don't abuse it. You know. But first, through it all, direct your path towards the Most High, praying and seeking the Most High. It says, 1 Peter 1:14, as obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance. But as he which has called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. Because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. So you want to be set apart. You know, you don't want to be conformed to this world doing worldly things. Now, let me get this in Isaiah. So, Lord willing, this was edifying to you. Don't count this as light thing to do. All praise to Yahweh by Shem Yahushua HaMashiach. This is Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3. It says, thou would keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusted in thee. So keep your mind stayed on the Most High, and he going to keep you in perfect peace. Verse 4, trust ye in the Lord Yahweh forever, for in the Lord Yahweh is everlasting strength. All praise to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, Fisherman of Zion, back with another video. Lord willing, this was edifying to you. Call Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushua HaMashiach. Those that are in the military, look, get out. Get out. Shalom.